On June 16th, Amazon Studios released a comprehensive inclusion policy that extends its commitment to diversity, inclusion, and equity for its content and productions, as well as a playbook with guidelines for its collaborators in the creative community. In this editorial, I will begin by first going through what Amazon states they intend to do, before breaking down what the equity part of the equation suggests they actually will do, and finally, what they hope to achieve here. Amazon Studios, arguably the king of streaming, first released their intentions on June 16th. Their statement read, Amazon Studios has long prioritized telling innovative and inclusive stories from a diverse range of creative talent, delighting our global audiences. We wanted to move beyond good intentions to creating mechanisms that hold us accountable to a high bar. This inclusion policy and inclusion playbook adds important additional depth and guidance for our internal teams and external partners, to ensure we continue to advance our shared mission of amplifying the best creatives and content around the world. That was quite the word salad, but we'll break it down and get to the real meaning of it. In short though, they have implemented an inclusion policy, which Amazon is so committed towards adhering to that they have also implemented an inclusion playbook, which will help ensure that they do. In other words, it's all about the policy, and it is wide-reaching. Their official statement continues, establishing expectations for Amazon Studios and its creative partners. Meaning, this policy doesn't apply to just Amazon themselves. If you're an outside production company working for Amazon, this applies to you as well. The inclusion policy covers 4 primary areas: developing stories and characters, hiring and production, reporting and documentation, and meeting goals. That's a long-winded way of saying that this policy governs the actual storytelling and character development. Take note of that. Diversity and inclusion before story and character. It goes beyond that though, as the policy also governs who will be allowed to work on any given production. And the implied part again is that the innate characteristics such as gender, ethnicity, and sexual identity are prioritized above individual qualifications. Also, in order to ensure the policy is actually followed, it comes with its own brand of bureaucracy and control features. Emphasizing this, the official statement continues. The policy ensures meaningful visibility in Amazon Studios' content and throughout all aspects of the production process, both in the stories being told and the people hired to tell them. This is Amazon flat out stating that gender and diversity comes before story and the skill of the storyteller. The policy includes specific goals for Amazon Studios productions, including each film or series with a creative team of 3 or more people in the above-the-line roles, directors, writers, producers, should ideally include a minimum 30% women and 30% members of an underrepresented racial ethnic group. This aspirational goal will increase to 50% by 2024. Taken to the extreme, this means that on a smaller production, where there are only 3 above-the-line people, the writer, the producer, and the director, only one of them can be a white male. If the project started with, say, a writer and a producer who are both white males, one of them will have to be replaced before the production can proceed at Amazon, as a minimum of 30% has to be female and another minimum of 30% has to be non-white. And that's now. By 2024, they say the 30% goal increases to 50%. What they're unclear about though is if the 50% is for non-whites only or for women and non-whites. Because if it is, that makes up 100% of the above-the-line roles. But that's behind the scenes. In terms of who will be on screen, the policy says, casting actors whose identity, i.e. gender, gender identity, nationality, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, disability, aligns with the character they will be playing, aiming to include one character from each of the following categories in speaking roles, with minimum 50% of these to be women: LGBTQIA+, person with a disability, and 3 regionally underrepresented race, ethnic, cultural groups. A single character can fulfill one or more of these identities.
Frankly, I'm sick and tired of how minority groups are marginalized in today's society. Cause I know that I'm a gay man.
I can't tell you how free I feel now that I've started identifying as a woman.
Man, I want to thank you all for this amazing award, or as Medea would say, hallelujah!
Oh God, how embarrassing.
Everything's worse. It's worse into the world.
Yeah, I can see ways of getting around that particular requirement. As for other third parties involved in productions, the policy requires Amazon to seek at least 3 bids from vendors or suppliers on productions, one of which must be from a woman-owned business and one from a minority-owned business. Do note that there they gave themselves an out. They only have to seek bids, but they can ultimately go with who they want. And then comes the key phrase: pay equity across casting, behind the camera staff and crew, and for vendors and suppliers. To those of you who grew up fighting for, or even hearing the phrase, equal pay for equal work, you can throw that whole line of thinking out with yesterday's trash now. Amazon certainly has. Equality is no longer a thing, because there's a new ideology in town. Amazon stated they would pay equity across casting, behind the camera staff and crew, and for vendors and suppliers. So let's begin there. Pay equity is the practice of mitigating employee wage inequalities based on race, gender, and other criteria. In other words, pay equity aims to resolve perceived wage disparities across a range of socio-political identity markers, which is a less blunt way of saying that gender and skin color play a big part in deciding what you get paid. One famous example here is the 2015 feature film Passengers, starring Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence. Leading up to that movie, the industry trades had covered how male movie stars generally were paid more than female movie stars. In order to rectify this injustice against women, caused by audiences historically flocking to male action stars, Sony therefore paid co-star Jennifer Lawrence $8 million more than star Chris Pratt. That's equity pay. It's about the outcome rather than the work itself, or the individual merits of the one performing it. Ignore the huge paychecks involved with the likes of Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt though. On a wider scale, and taken to the logical extreme, what this means is that Amazon, in the name of equity, can pay one caterer a different fee than another based on the skin color or gender of who owns it. And equity is indeed the guiding principle behind what Amazon are doing here. Let's take a brief moment to see what that means. The propagandistic view of equity is some variation of the image you see on screen right now, of 3 people of different sizes standing outside a sports stadium, trying to watch the events. Within the previous paradigm of equality, they all get the same, meaning a box of equal size to stand on. This makes the big guy even better off than he was, but it only barely enables the medium-sized guy to catch a glimpse of what is happening in the stadium. But for the little guy, his equal share simply isn't enough, and he can't see anything. Within the paradigm of equity, however, the big guy gets nothing, as he was big enough to catch a glimpse over the fence already. The medium guy catches the same glance as before, but the little guy now gets 2 boxes, allowing him to also glance into the field, just like the big guy and the medium guy. What should be the bigger statement with this picture, though, is that all three of them are still only getting a glimpse of what is happening inside the stadium, for they are pleb, and none of them are invited into the good company inside the stadium. Nor are they, for that matter, provided with anything that would give them any kind of means with which to actually buy entry into the stadium for themselves either. Ignore the emotionally manipulative visual presentation in this illustration. In reality, the big guy could be someone working really hard to improve their situation, and the medium or little guy could be, not to put too fine a point on it, slackers or lazy bums of the highest magnitude. Within equity, they all get the same though, regardless of their individual level of effort, because equity means equality of outcome, meaning no one outside the stadium shall have more than anyone else outside the stadium, no matter what they do. For the powers that be at Amazon, this works great, because they are inside the stadium, and with equity, none of the outside rabble will come in to bother them. That's the true meaning of equity. In order to ensure they stay on that path, Amazon also made an inclusion playbook. Amazon's official statement reads, "Through the setting of goals and tracking of adherence to these policies, Amazon Studios expands its commitment to increasing representation on camera and behind the scenes, contributing to efforts to move the industry forward to a more inclusive future. The Inclusion Playbook puts in place intentional practices to minimize and disrupt biases, providing specific guidance that will help everyone within and working with Amazon Studios to meet the expectations set in the inclusion policy. The playbook provides direction on how to make inclusive decisions while telling authentic stories and hiring the best people for the job. Knowledge of where to go for help, including tools to make inclusive decisions, tools to identify criteria for making creative choices, leading to balanced, consistent, and informed decisions, and ways to foster curiosity and ask questions to disrupt the status quo about how things are done." In other words, the playbook comprises a set of rules to ensure that inclusivity is at the forefront of everything they do, and there is an express goal to subvert how things have been done traditionally. Helping Amazon hammer down all of this was a number of NGOs, as well as Dr. Stacy Smith and Dr. Catherine Piper of USC's Annenberg Inclusion Initiative. I can't claim familiarity with them, but Bounding into Comics describes them as radical activists. Amazon concluded their statement by listing their objectives, namely to ensure diverse representation of talent in front of and behind the camera, above and below the line, dismantle long-standing barriers to success in the industry, and inspect our processes so we do not create or perpetuate inequities. And finally, tell inclusive narratives to reach a globally diverse audience. No one minds diversity and representation. That has never been an issue. Likewise, no one minds dismantling barriers to entry, so long as it's not just a means of shifting the goalposts. However, it remains to be seen how the globally diverse audience will respond to being force-fed the most radical parts of American academia's idea of diversity. I am certainly curious about how the global response to Amazon's diverse Lord of the Rings and female-centric Wheel of Time will end up being. Let me know how excited you are for those, and how you think this will all work out in the comments.